Well, welcome to the tail end of Cloud Fridays, the first of 4 Cloud Fridays this quarter. Is it this quarter, this half year? Half year? Yeah. So the Cloud Fridays runs on the second Friday of every month, and it will run for 4 consecutive months. And then we have a break of 2 months, and then we do another 4. I think this month's theme was really around cost and management of Azure and Azure resources, and how you can better manage what you have in the cloud, especially when it comes to moving from on-prem to the cloud. Because our biggest problem with customers is that they need to learn how to switch things off. Because on-prem, you never switch it off. In fact, the longer it stays up, the better you feel, because you never know if it's actually going to come back on if you do switch it off. So that's the converse is true when moving to Azure, where if it only needs to be up between 8 and 5, keep it up between 8 and 5. At the same time, don't make changes that could affect, like we do on-prem, where we make a change and we need to keep it up so that it actually works because we've made a change in production. You can't do that in Azure because you will lose money. And when it comes to governance and management, is it working? Yes. When it comes, click. Oh, I hate these Microsoft slides. We talk about acceleration, velocity, and at what sort of speed we can not only move to the cloud, but when we're in the cloud, what sort of speed we can actually work at, right? And it's always a problem because business is talking about how fast they can adopt the technology and how fast they can build applications so that they can get their technology and their service offerings to their customers. So at the rate of change that they want to work on, Azure makes a lot of sense, right? Because you can build faster, you can automate your pipelining. We know about Kubernetes because that's all that Warren talks about. And you can literally be up in a matter of minutes. And we were talking about how fast people can move, how you can actually build an application and deploy it, host it in Azure instantaneously. But how do we know what we're doing because of how fast we can deploy it? Because invariably, at the speed that you're traveling, it's going to break something. And usually it doesn't break your neck, breaks the back. And everyone wants to complain about it, right? Because that first month of running in Azure, you go to your boss and you go, here's the bill. And then people have to liquidate their houses and their cars just to pay the bill. And governance is really about knowing what you're getting yourself into, right? It's not like going onto Tinder where you can double tap or swipe right and then you go on a date and it might be a psycho, right? Because, you know, I know a few people that I'm glad that if they became a psycho, if they were a serial killer, I'd go, well, that makes sense, right? So it's really about knowing before you're going, especially on the technical side. So how do you go about looking at what's available in Azure? And we saw a bit about cost management, right? We spoke about cost management earlier on. There's a few other things that I'm interested in around identity and security. And then I don't care so much. Do you care much about the deployment acceleration? I mean, is it a thing?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, all right. Jody, on your side, any comments?
I think DevOps is definitely a big thing. Otherwise, Neil is going to throw you with a brick. Security is definitely big. I think that is what everybody is worried about. Resource consistency. We will touch on that a bit later. Alistair then will touch on that as they go through the deck. But yeah, definitely security, cost.
Identity and security.
Yeah, considering that Nedbank had a breach yesterday, or it was announced yesterday that they had a breach.
Well, we really don't know where that breach came from or what it was hosted on, right? And I think it's pivotal when we look at those sort of conversations, especially in fintech. Nedbank had a breach and they had to declare it, but we don't know where it's come from, and it's scary that we have to hear that via the news and all the pundits will go, but it's because you're hosting in a public cloud and it's a problem. Microsoft spends over $4 billion a year on security. You cannot tell me that their environment is not more secure than your bricks and mortar private cloud environment that you have, because they spend that amount of money.
Al, but I think one of the mistakes that people make is, let's move our stuff to public cloud, and just by moving our stuff there, suddenly our stuff is secured. They forget that there's still processes that they need to put in place.
It's implementation, and implementation of security is actually quite complex. So, it's all very well saying you've got more security, but if the client hasn't implemented correctly, they haven't got security.
Yeah.
So
you're exposing service.
Yeah, exactly.
Your risk is there.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at Tailwind Traders, right? And they're moving to the cloud, and they've got some governance challenges. And those challenges are fairly straightforward, right? Not understanding how fast they grow because you're not measuring anything. Not understanding what you have, and then you rush and you delete something, and Store Simple on-prem deletes it for you as well, right? We've seen that a few times. I'm not going to talk about PCI compliance because we don't have any retailers in the room, so I don't particularly care about PCI stuff. I don't care about credit cards right now. We can touch on it. We're not transactional today. And then also, how do you scale your governance? So what do you have from Azure, from Microsoft, where when you spin up scale, let's say you want to spin up, you've got these big loads that come in on high days where you have to have a scale set that's going to spin up 1,000 VMs and then scale down when the high days are done. So how do you get that sort of culture into your organization when working with that sort of rate of change? Think about retailers, think about Takealot, right? Today, Net Florist is a high day. Net Florist is making 5 million Rand today, guaranteed. Right, so how do they scale for orders 4 days leading up to Valentine's Day and 2 days afterwards? But I know for a fact that Net Florist hires 200 drivers today just for Johannesburg. Yeah. Cape Town used to have about 70 drivers in Cape Town. And it's probably gotten bigger just for the day. Yeah. They got high days. And think about Black Friday for Takealot. So how do you ensure that there's infrastructure to scale, but at the same time you have some sort of governance model in place where you don't leave the lights on? I mean, when you leave your house, you switch the lights off. Or you tell Alexa to switch the lights off. Or there's a timer that's going to put your lights off. Same with your geyser. We need to take that same thought process and bring it with us when we're working in the cloud, because we're paying for consumption. We haven't bought the hardware. Now, with Tailwind or TT, I like to call it TT, and Microsoft actually owns these names, all of them. There's a list of names. AdventureWorks and a whole bunch of others, they actually own the names and the domains.
Correct.
For it. So when you look at applying this at scale, it becomes much more difficult to manage, especially with a larger org where it's decentralized and they've got people across the country. And a simple thing as there was something that was launched today on the M, so you can manage your sidebar. Today there was the launch of managing subscriptions in your M365 admin center, so you can toggle between the two. It was launched, it's rolling out now. Now with Tailwind, the previous statement was they have multiple teams in various locations touching different subscriptions. And I'm not going to talk too much about subscriptions, but you can have multiple subscriptions associated with your tenant. So when you deploy anything in Azure, you need to decide where it's going to deploy to. So what subscription are you going to use, because that's what you pay for, or you use to pay for the resource group that you've just spun up. Now, when we talk about a disparate organization with teams geographically dispersed, but 3 people sitting in Cape Town, I've got 7 sitting in Joburg, I've got 2 sitting in Durban, I've got someone sitting in Mauritius, and they're all responsible for their individual workloads. In the old days, it was great, right? We've got a DC in our building in Cape Town, we've got a DC in our building in Joburg, we've got one in Durban, and we're responsible for that. But moving to the cloud, it is different because we are now responsible for individual workloads. There's no single pane of glass that we would have access to, or that these teams have access to work through these. How do you actually get to a point where you can understand or decouple the complexity of your cloud deployment? And this is where I hand over to Warren, and he will take you through that. You'll notice the next slide is not there because I deleted it because it said demo on it.
Right, so I will do the demo. Alistair's allergic to the Azure portal.
It's actually open on my screen.
He breaks up in
No,
hives.
it's open. You don't see it.
Ah, I see. Look at you, hey? Okay, let me share my screen. Share my Firefox. Okay, so let me show you the Resource Explorer. Dun dun dun. Okay. Everybody see that okay? So you'll see if you type in resource.
And you guys see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
What happens is we go into what they call the Resource Explorer. This is a. Now, how many of you guys know what Custo is? Okay, it's a language to write queries. Okay. So what we're going to do is we'll choose. Sorry, not Resource Explorer. One second.
Resource Graph.
Resource Graph Explorer. Right. Okay, so now what we can do is you'll see that when you click on the language reference button over here, what it'll do is it'll take you to some of these starter queries that you can use. And these queries you can run and then create bar graphs based on the results so that you can see what's happening in the environment. Now they've got some really, really cool ones. So for instance, unassociated network groups, aliases for virtual machines, storage accounts with a specific tag value. They got some really cool stuff. And if you go to some of the advanced queries, okay, you'll see, for instance, you can get the capacity of a scale set. And this is all in Custo. So now, for instance, if I wanted to go and see how many tags I have in my environment, all I do is I can just quickly copy that, paste it into the query, and run it. And you'll see those are some of the tags that I have available. And this is, so for instance, deployed by is a string, application is a string, and you can see the details of some of these tags. So if I wanted to list, let's go and list SQL databases and their elastic pools, right? So I could click on that. I would go new query and run the query. And you'll see, once it gives me some results, I can then choose the type of bar chart that I want. Now you see it says no results, it's just purely because I don't have any elastic pools or anything inside my subscription. But you'd be able to see which elastic pools and which databases are inside them as well. And you can see that it's actually pretty simple when you look at it, when you deconstruct the query. Very, very similar to SQL. So, yeah, exactly that. So now this is pretty cool. I mean, I like this one myself. So what we can do here is if we go to a new query, we run this query, check that out. So it pulls the size of the VMs, it pulls the name of the VMs, and it gives us the public IP addresses associated with those VMs. We can format these columns any way we want, export as CSV. So it's a really quick and easy way to find out what exactly is in your environment. So to take it back to this guy. Yeah, sure. So to take it back here, click on there, slideshow, back. Okay, you guys can see that, right? Okay, so in a nutshell, keyword query language, or Custo, you can explore your resources across subscriptions. You can also do this via the PowerShell or the CLI. So all you would do is just go AZ space, and then you would invoke the command with the query following straight after it. It's also in that documentation that I just showed you now. You can then find your assets based on the resource properties or their relationships. So again, I was able to do a query on the virtual machine and then link those public IP addresses to the list because it was linked to the virtual machine. Right. And then again, you can understand the impact of applying policies before their implementation. Right? So you can see what's linked to what resource groups they're in, and if you had to apply a policy, what would happen. Okay. Cool. Right, next one. So, this is quite a cool one. A junior admin, tasked with saving money, deletes a VM. Right? It's had no utilization in the last 2 weeks. It was only used once a month. Okay? Because it's supposed to consolidate organizational accounts at the end of the month. Right? So, how does Tailwind Traders prevent accidental changes and allow ops to understand which objects should not be deleted? And the answer to that, does anybody know? It's probably the Azure equivalent, right? Ta-da! Okay. Azure Resource Locks. So cool. Nice. So you can actually, depending on the template that you want to deploy or marketplace items, what can happen is you can put a cannot delete or a read-only resource lock in the template as well. So I deployed a dev test lab the other day. And because the dev test lab resources were associated to the dev test lab itself, it actually put a lock on it so that I couldn't go accidentally delete the stuff that made the dev test lab work. I wouldn't be surprised if they start doing this with AKS. Kubernetes! Because then what happens is you can't go and delete the load balancers and things that are associated with AKS. Okay, so there's two types of resource lock. As you can see, is cannot delete and read only. Okay. Right. So what I can do is I can actually show you a demo. Dun, dun, dun.
Okay. We're not to demos. We'd like to leave before.
Demos are the best.
It's 12 on a Friday, Warren.
Demos are the best.
People in Cape Town have already clocked out.
Wait. Demos are the best.
Demoing Kubernetes then going.
Yeah, but watch. I'm going to show you some Kubernetes. All right, so we're back in the Azure portal, resource groups, and I go to, let's say, this one here. It's like a dev resource. And then what we're going to try to do is we're going to delete this. And hope that I put up. Oh, lucky. Right. That's what you call a demo. Now, why did it not delete, you ask? It's because
That's what happens when you prep the demo an hour before the session.
So,
Always works.
It has a lock on it, right? So, you'll see.
But you typed the wrong name, Warren.
Hey?
You didn't type the name of the resource.
I typed in yes.
No, that's not what
Right.
you meant to type.
It wanted yes.
Why are you talking, Matt? You're not allowed to talk now. You got your full hour of spewing sporadically.
Okay, so as you can see there, I've created a lock, and the lock is called Don't Touch, Don't Be Stupid.
Don't be Matt. Don't be Matt.
Don't lock, don't be stupid. Okay. So essentially what happens is the lock is a delete type of lock to make sure that we don't go and we delete those. Now, it also works when it comes to read-only. So if I've gone to this one here, I've done another don't touch, don't be stupid. However, it's a read-only, right? Which means that I can't make changes to those resources. So I can't size them up, size them down, but I can see what's there. Okay, so those two types of locks. Okay, then what we'll do is while we're in demo mode, I'm going to take you through the next piece, which is tags. Okay, so tags, really, really important. Tag your resources. You'll see I've got no tags in this particular resource group, but in this one here, under these resources, I've gone ahead and I've tagged these resources with specific things. Come on. Then what you can do is you can then, again, using the Resource Graph Explorer, pick up these tags, and then you can report on the tags. Alternatively, you can view the tags inside of the Azure portal. So let's go look at these ones that I just tagged a little bit earlier.
Here's the cupcake I baked earlier.
Okay, so you see I've got some tags there. Home stuff, deployed by, and what type of environment, right? So what I can then do is I can go to tags. Oops. And you can see gives me a list of the tags that I've deployed in the environment. And then what I can do is I can just click on one. And then you can go and you can choose the columns, you can choose the type of report, you can export to CSV, you can pull cost analysis, which takes us back to Matt's presentation a little bit earlier, is you can then pull costing based on tags. So tags become incredibly important. Okay. So while also again in demo mode, I'm going to just go through all the demos straight away. So the next one is going to be a tagging policy. So Matt was talking about policies earlier, about tagging policies and then how you can apply auto tags. The thing is, sometimes you don't want to apply auto tags. You want people to put some sort of thought into what it is that they're doing. Or alternatively, you want them to specify whether it's prod, whether it's what it's used for, if it's development, what environment it's in, which date it was deployed on, those kinds of things. You can go ahead and you can create policies that will stop people from deploying specific types of things if they don't have those tags. So what we can do is we can go to a definition inside of Azure Policy. We can say that we want a new policy definition. And then we can choose, you'll see some of these policy definitions that you can import from GitHub as well are some of these built-in policies. So we can go and say, look at built-in policies, policy definitions, and then we can search for tagging. And then you'll see, there's two types here. One is a require tag and value, and then there's another one which is just require tag. So you can specify inside of the environment variable or the environment tag that it can only be prod, dev, or UAT. That's all it's allowed. He's not allowed to create an environment called, this is my cool test space or something. Okay. Right, so what happens is it starts keeping your policy, your tag definitions down. So you don't just get all these random tags. Okay, so what we can do here is if you look at the JSON for resource tag deny, you'll see we can say enforce this tag and its name, otherwise deny. Okay, once we've imported that definition, so we can go in here, we can create a new category if we wanted to, alternatively, so we could just copy and paste this. And we can paste that in there, we can save that definition.
Can I ask a question?
Once we've saved this, yeah.
The deny part of that, does that deny the tag or does it deny the resource?
Deny the resource.
Okay.
So this denies the creation of the resource.
Okay.
So it's basically saying if the tags do not exist, then deny.
Is this even in?
Yes, yeah. Okay, then once we're done with policy definitions, we go to assignments, and then we can assign the policy to a set group of resources. We can either assign it to the subscription, or the environment, or the resource group, or whatever the case may be. And that is the demo done. Okay. So, just to recap, Azure tagging, it's metadata that's assigned to the Azure resource. Allows you to organize it and create a taxonomy if you need to. It includes the tag and a value, so you'll always have a tag and you'll have a value assigned to the tag. Okay, like I said, allows you to view the resources and based on a tag. Okay, then how do we do it? Azure policies. We create a policy, which is the rule that will be enforced. We create an initiative, which is a collection of policies, so you can apply more than one policy, but then have one assignment. Then you've got the assignment.
If you apply more than one policy, is there a precedence, a hierarchy of which policy gets applied if there's more than one?
I would say that the most specific one gets applied. So if you've got a broad-based assignment, which applies to the whole subscription, and then you've got another assignment which is applied to the resource, it'll take the resource one over the subscription.
Okay, because there's quite a few different, and that's a big, especially with using stuff like Intune or the endpoint manager, where you've got more than one policy, and it depends on what the policy type is. which one is going to take precedence. It's like running System Center on-prem and Intune in the cloud, and you're using Endpoint Manager, which policy? And the same would apply here, because you'll be managing your resources in much the same way.
Yeah. And then just to summarize, so Azure policy, it allows you to govern your Azure resources at scale. You can apply the policies at scale, apply multiple policies, and you can aggregate policy states with policy initiatives. You've also got exclusion scopes, so stuff that you don't want to be affected by the policy. You can also turn on built-in policies, which again is one of the tagging ones. One of the tagging ones is built in as well. You can also do compliance evaluation based on policy enforcement, and you can do automatic remediation of the resources at deployment time. So the idea there is that you deny the creation of the resource, or alternatively, you force the tag on the resource, like Matt was saying a little bit earlier, where it'll attach that tag anyway. Okay? Then you can trigger an alert when the resource is out of compliance. And with that, I hand over to Jody. Okay, you can go for it, Jodes. I don't know if you want to share from your side.
Yeah, I'll share from the side.
Thank you, Warren. My name taken off that.
And it's still got all the demo slides in it. Good job. 22.
Cool. So the other side of the security stuff is, Warren spoke about the policies. The other side is Azure blueprints. And how do you keep people compliant? So whether it's databases, data standards, which is pretty common, or the most that people go after these days. How do you make people not break in or just expose your data on the one side? Yeah, how do you not get them to expose your data? So all these standards have been built in already inside of Azure. Previously, in on-prem, you have to go and create your own policies, group-wide, company-wide policies, and then hope they all work and people don't expose data. We had one case with a customer, with a retailer, where we could have used these type of policies where people don't expose customer data, and especially credit card data. And it ended up that one of the newer devs that they hired actually stole credit card data from a dev machine and went shopping. He's now sitting in jail. Cool. So let's go through all the slides now. That's what still wanted to use Edge, eh? I just want to get to the blueprints first.
We're not seeing it. Yeah.
Cool. So one of the things that we can use is Azure Blueprint. So Azure Blueprint helps you with getting your governance off the ground. So there's a lot of scaffolding involved. So which policies do you want to apply to Azure or in your organization, and how you want people to conform to it? So instead of going and taking a couple of months to go think about what's the policy that you want to put in and how you're going to put it together, Microsoft has done the thinking for you. So you can either go and write a blank policy, so from scratch, or you can go and take one of the ones that are built in as a kickoff. You can always edit those. If, for example, in my case, Tailspin wants to comply with PCI, we can then go and say, cool, here's a policy, PCI compliance, and location. Yeah, that's the space. And you choose the subscription you want, and there you go, and you say select, and then you go to artifacts, and I can now go say, cool, this is the stuff that I want in it, and if it's not there, I can go and add other artifacts based on policy assignment, role assignment, or the resource group. And then once that is done, I can save it and then deploy it. And that will go for your databases as well. So if you want in our case with SQL, what we do a lot is, so cool, we'll take the what can I spin up for manage instance? Only kidding, man. It's like every time I see that MVP sponsorship, like with mine also, it's like manage instance goes after. So what I'm doing now is I want to go. Is it not in there? Yeah. So in here I can go add a policy. I can say, where is it? Advanced threat protection. Cool. Say a vulnerability assessment. So I can go and add that as part of my SQL environment, that Azure goes and does a vulnerability assessment for every database for every managed instance that I have. And it will do it on a weekly basis, and every Sunday afternoon I will get the report of all my instances telling me this is how they're compliant, this is where they're not compliant, please fix. And I get an email every Sunday for all my customers, Sunday afternoon, with our customers and saying, listen, this is where they've screwed up in terms of compliance, please go and fix. And then it will actually tell you in the report, this is how you fix it. So if I don't want to actually fix the stuff, I just send it to them and say, please fix this. We picked up that you're not compliant.
Look, I think there's some things to be said based on the organization that you're in, so the industry vertical. If you're a nuclear operator, NIST compliance comes into play, and there are certain blueprints. I mean, there's an entire list. There's FedRAMP, there's HIPAA, all of those things, and it's no longer just around resource compliance, it's also around data compliance. And Jody was talking about, we're not going to touch it here, but you are able to actually drill down to a data level when you start looking at, is your Azure infrastructure, let's call it infrastructure, compliant, not just is that network segment fast enough for what you've designed in the policies?
Yeah, so especially organizations those that need to be, say, ISO, that's what's it, ISO 27001 compliant, especially engineering companies, that's also built in. So, I mean, you can literally just go roll it out, edit the stuff later, and you're up and running in about 5 minutes. So, and it's legally compliant. And then you can go into the Microsoft Security Center after that and actually check for a complete report on how compliant you actually are. And you can actually get a security score that you can actually present to your auditors, because we have to present it to the banks or some of our customers to say, this is the Microsoft compliance, our compliance score, security compliance score from Microsoft, and ta-da, here we go. And they actually took it. The auditors actually took it and like, cool, you're compliant. So now we have to do it every 3 months for them. Yo, why does it do this every time? Cool. So, as we talked about the blueprints, with that, streamline your environment faster. So, if people create stuff like everybody else does, it's all automated. You can ensure that your developers don't catch on crap, because they will. They will always try and create stuff.
Did you just slam devs?
Totally.
Wow.
Dude, it's the truth. So,
Not the truth. If you build out your DevOps properly, then you won't have these problems.
that's why we're showing people the blueprints, so they can start off with that.
You don't have to install. You don't
Kubernetes.
Kubernetes.
We can say Kubernetes too.
Yeah, especially those Kubernetes, the Kubernetes developers. Is that what they call themselves these days?
Kubernetes development. All right.
Yeah, so I mean, from my side, I've shown probably about the only demo I can show is around Azure Blueprints and how it works. So you can go set up your policies, templates, RBAC. That's a big one. So if you get, before you go and create any of these policies, make sure you've got your RBAC policies right. Because who's going to access what, when, all those type of things, so that you know that you comply, that the right people have access to the right resources. Because the last thing you want is, cool, we've got security in place, and then some junior goes and deletes the stuff.
Look, we spoke a bit about security and identity, and they go hand in hand. So if you don't have proper identity management in place up front, RBAC is not really, you can't get your RBAC without property identity management.
Yeah, you're going to end up assigning everybody global admin or contributor role.
Now have owner role, the subscription, because you don't want people under us.
Yeah, so we've actually busy working with a SQL engineering team on bringing RBAC for SQL inside of the portal. And we bring it just to a certain level so people can have that experience, and then they have to go and script the stuff out in Management Studio. But it's everything with this in mind. Yeah, and then there's blueprint locks. And that says, don't lock doesn't mean it's not protected, it's protected. Do not delete means that the resource will be altered but can't be removed. Read only means exactly that. Read only. You can't move it or change it. And is another whole bunch of frameworks that are related to regulation. So all those that I showed you in the portal are all based on this. So all the industry compliance. And as you can see, a lot of it is focused on data.
We don't care. There's no poppy there. No poppy. So we've got nothing in that list.
April, bruh, April.
Sure. April 2027. Yes.
Yeah, we'll see. I want to see how many 10 million rand fans they actually dish out.
Oh, they need to first find the people. So yes, in closing, how did TT solve their problems? Click through, Jody. These were all the problems that they had again. One more. Yeah. So how did they go about doing? I'm going to leave heavily on Warren to talk a bit about guardrails. 2 minutes.
Well, guardrails is what Jody has just been through. So the blueprints are those.
So when we look at what it is, you actually it's nice to be able to manage resource deployment in your organization, like object, right? And predefined object. Having a user put up a storage account and there is a problem, or manage them, right? So I think it's great that it's available. We also know that these templatized solutions, companies can now, especially IT departments, be able to provide a platform for developing Kubernetes efficiently. And there's no debate between someone like Jody, some IT manager with a stick, and a developer that are frankly. So these things tie. And I don't know if you are actually establishing a custodian team. We've always talked about a governance team that's made up of an enterprise architecture forum, which is how it used to be in the old days, and transforming your enterprise architecture forum into a custodian or governance team inside of your organization, so that you get work through what cost management is, understand how logical things assist in our bank, and also work through the policies that you can embed them inside of your solution so that your guardrails are full capacity. And I think that it from our side. I don't any more.
That's it.
Anyone have any questions?
Not really a question, just point to ponder. Business things that take their on-prem stuff that is not hardened or not protected and stuff like that, or magic dust, but into the cloud, and all of a sudden it's hardened, secure, it's protected. No. Even if you do this potentially could still just be a band-aid for the inherent issue with that. If they haven't gone through the process of actually hardening the application, protecting against SQL injection and all the other bad guys out there and bad operators, moving into the cloud doesn't magically make those things happen.
No, so that's why some of those blueprints have policies around SQL injection as well. Microsoft actually has an app in Azure that will run against your web apps and all those and your databases, and in real time tell you who's trying to hack it, whether from the inside out, who's trying to inject into your database.
Or you can just hire the right company.
Or you can spin up Azure Sentinel.
You see, the propellers like that. No, just spin up Kubernetes or spin up Azure Sentinel. Gets you in all kinds of calculators.
Have you seen the price of Azure?
What Sentinel skills?
Yeah.
I think we can.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed the show. And we will catch you in a month.
Thanks,
If
guys.
you are not on Teams, let us know and we'll add you to the team.
Or on Meetup.
And these videos will be published to YouTube and then you can consume it backward.
Excellent. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Have fun.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks, everyone.